So our top story this morning, the government will finally publish its controversial changes to our planning laws later on this afternoon. But you may ask, why are the proposed changes necessary? Well, according to the government, the population of England is expected to grow by nearly 4.5 million people over the next 8 years. Government estimates say to cope with that, 2 million more homes need to be built, with 1.3 million of them being outside the big cities. Well, we're joined now by John Slaughter. He's the Policy Director at the Home Builders Federation. Good morning to you, Mr. Slaughter. The government says that it's going to cut red tape. Presumably this is very good news for you and the building industry at a time when, let's face it, it needs some good news.
Absolutely. We need a streamlined and more efficient planning system to build the number of homes we need, and certainly that's going to be a big boost for the economy because housing translates very quickly into jobs in all parts of the construction sector and beyond. So yeah, cutting red tape is going to be very, very important for us.
The government says that the plans operate on the presumption in favour of sustainable development. Now, we hear that term all the time. What is sustainable development? How green will any new building projects be, or expected to be?
Well, I think projects are going to be green anyway. We have national building regulations where we're working towards net zero carbon homes. We have more water efficient new homes these days. So the basic standards of new housing are pretty good from a sustainability point of view. And beyond that, the new system will give local communities the ability to decide how they balance sustainable and environmental objectives against the need for housing. So I think there is going to be plenty of balance in the new system, and no one need be worried on that score.
Well, we can join Neil Findon now from Campaign to Protect Rural England. Mr. Findon, perhaps you could tell us what you make of these proposals.
Well, we haven't seen the detail yet, but what we know is that good planning is essential to accommodate the development we need and to protect the countryside at the same time. There is a desperate need for new housing, but what's critically important is that we build the right kind of housing, affordable housing predominantly, in the areas where it's most needed, in our towns and cities. And we need a planning framework which enables us to do that, which protects our valuable countryside and actually revitalises and re-energises our towns and cities and our villages, which are the engines of the economy. The planning system isn't the problem here. I have to say I think the problem is with the way in which the house building industry seeks to address our housing needs. It builds far too many large houses, far too few affordable homes, and the design quality of our housing, much of our new housing is poor, and we need to really raise the game to ensure that we're building housing which really meets the need.
Mr. Slaughter, perhaps you can respond to that. Are we making the best use of the housing developments that are already out there? Can some just be redeveloped rather than creating new ones?
Yes, of course there's scope for redevelopment, but we need to build a lot more new homes overall. We estimate a shortage cumulatively already of something like 1 million homes, and you've mentioned the need for 2 million by 2020 or so. Quality, we realise and appreciate that we need to build good quality. The new planning framework, we expect to have really quite tough requirements for good quality design in it. And on affordability, of course, the industry wants to build for a whole range of housing options, but there's a misunderstanding that much affordable housing in the form of subsidised social housing is provided by the industry already on a cross-subsidy basis. So there's no question that the industry is actually providing all the things that society wants.
Well, Mr. Findon, the government has promised to protect the country's most precious environment, so it's not exactly talking about destroying the new forest here. They're talking about disused fields and brownfield sites.
Absolutely. I mean, brownfield sites are important. We need to make best use of our previously developed land. Much of that is in our existing towns and cities. We estimate that we have enough brownfield land to accommodate around about 1.5 million homes moving forward. That's a large number of new homes, and that can be done in ways which benefit the urban environment and which reduce pressure on green fields. yes, the government has said that it wants to protect our most precious landscapes, and that's fantastic. But what it hasn't said so far is that the ordinary countryside, which comprises around 50% of our rural landscape, is valuable too. And we need to make sure that we're giving adequate protection for those local areas of green space which are so valued by local communities up and down the countryside.
Neil, I think it's really important to say that the framework does provide that opportunity. That's what new local plans
Well, we haven't seen the framework
yet.
I mean, I think we're debating a framework that is to be published early this afternoon. We haven't seen the detail. The devil will be in the details. The draft that we have seen was extremely poor in terms of protecting the countryside and focusing development on brownfield sites.
Okay, well, on brownfield, I think the industry has a pretty good track record on that. We're building over 70% of new homes on brownfield sites already. The problem has been that not enough brownfield land that's viable to develop has been coming through the system. So if a new system can actually ensure that there's a sufficient supply of viable brownfield land, of course the industry will be happy to build on it. But what we can't have is a situation where there isn't sufficient land to build on.
Okay, I want to move away from, gentlemen, I want to move away from brownfield sites here. Mr. Cinder, perhaps you can talk to me. You were talking about protecting the rural areas, but rural economies are in decline at the moment. You've got pubs, you've got shops closing down daily. Surely new affordable housing and expansion of rural businesses will be actually welcomed by rural communities.
Absolutely, as long as it's well planned, as long as it's in the right place, as long as it's meeting local needs. CPRE has been campaigning for years for affordable housing in rural communities in order to create that sense of vibrancy and social balance and economic health. But we need to do so, and we need to plan for that in ways which protect our green fields. There is a lot of space, previously developed land in our market towns and in our larger villages, which needs to be used first before we actually expand onto green fields. We are not saying that under any circumstances should we be building on greenfield sites, but what we are saying is that we need to focus on the brownfield, on the previously developed land first, in order to improve our environment as well as to meet the needs of local communities.
And just finally, one last word from you, Mr. Slaughter. The problem is going to be striking a balance, isn't it? I mean, there is a demand for homes, but they tend to be near big cities, not in rural areas where perhaps jobs aren't.
Yes, I think the important thing about the new system is it will enable each area to plan for its own requirements. And there is a big need for more housing in a lot of rural areas. Otherwise, their local societies and economies will frankly die. So there is going to be a chance for everyone to provide for what they need locally.
OK, Neil Sinden from the Campaign to Protect Rural England and John Slaughter from the Home Builders Federation, thank you very much for your thoughts this morning.